I was reflecting yesterday, and I was thinking about there was a black guy, I think around 27, between 27 and 29, somewhere in there. And he called, and I believe he meant well, really. And he was talking about I believe the Black Panther Party, and the impact that he felt that it had upon the country and why they did it. He felt like and I don't want to read him wrong, so if I'm misreading, forgive me. But he seemed to he had the idea that what the Black Panther did in America was needed and effective in a positive way. And he was saying that he had read some book by Hugh Newton or somebody. He had read some book, and he was pretty serious about it. And he had believed into what he read. He had believed into it. And I understand. Understood him. But what I realized is that he had a made-up mind. Whether it was right or wrong, it was a made-up mind about what he believed. And I'm using the word unfortunate, but I'm not sure if it was unfortunate. Because in life, you get what you put out, right? You get what you put out. And then after he called, there was what seemed to be an older gentleman call, or a guy called from Tennessee, somewhere around that area. And he agreed with the young man that called and had believed into all the wrong things. And it was interesting to hear that. So I reflect on that a little bit yesterday. The older guy called, right after him was from Kentucky. And so I reflect on it, and I reflected, and I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense. And what I realized from that, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. That's why you shouldn't judge people whether you agree or disagree with them. You don't have to agree with them, but don't judge them. They are doing the best they could. But what I realized from that, and I never, ever, ever, ever heard this. And I used to hear when I was growing up, and in my young adult life, I would hear sometimes from the older preachers. But now, I don't hear it at all. Zero. It's like it's forgotten. It is forgotten. And then I mention it sometimes in my fellowship or when I'm talking to people, and some people tend to get it, or at least they listen, and they start to see if it's true or not. And then some people hear it, and they just, oh, okay, and then they're like, okay, fine. And they go back to their old nature. But then once in a while, one or two people hear it, and they grab onto it, even though they may not understand it fully, it somehow or another makes sense to them, and they want more of it. And what it is that I don't hear at all now, and I even ask people about it on the Fallen State, maybe even sometime here on this show, the Jesse Lee Peterson show, but on the fallenstate.tv, I ask people about it, and they have no clue as to what I'm talking about. Zero clue. And I'm thinking, wow, that's so interesting. And what that is that there is, and without a doubt, there is another reality. There is another way to live. And there is another location to live from. And that place is called the kingdom of heaven within. Within us, there is a kingdom of heaven. It really, really is. And the kingdom of heaven, this location within, has nothing, zero, in common with the outer kingdom, with the world. It has nothing in common with it at all. It's as different as it is night or day, night and day. And the outer world rejects the inner world. The outer kingdom rejects the inner kingdom, and the inner kingdom rejects the outer kingdom. It really, really does. I'm not making it up. I'm telling you the truth. But most people don't know about it, and they don't believe it. If they hear about it, they love their outer world. They love their outer world. And they would do, even though the outer world, if you really, really pay attention to it, is nothing but destruction. It is nothing but destruction. Wars, violence, crime, worry, doubt, insecurity. There's nothing good in that outer world. Looking for love and never find it in that outer world. And when you do think you have found it in another person, and you and that person get together, all you do is fight. And you realize that wasn't love. I thought that was love. And it wasn't. Because it's not in the outer world. You worry about, just when you worry about high taxes, you worry about if you're going to make it tomorrow. You'll find that you worry in that outer world. And what I realized from that is that most people love the outer world. They love the misery. And they don't want to hear that there is another world, another reality. Really. They don't want to hear it. A few do, a handful. And when I say a handful, I really mean a handful. And because you love that outer world, you love that conflict, what you put out come back on you. You create your own world. And that you and you alone, nobody else, and I promise you this, you and you alone and no one else is to blame for your conflict, for your fears and your doubts and your jealousies and your worries, and you're looking for a leader, believing in somebody else to guide you, and your confusion, your hurts, and your sickness and your lostness. Only you is responsible for that. And I really want to, this is for all people, but I really want to bring attention to the blacks. I've realized that for 70 years now, give or take, not all, but most black people have done nothing but blame others for their situation. They just blame. They're angry. They're lost. They're lonely. They're depressed. They have. They're confused, and they blame others for it. They are so lost. I want you to think about this. Smoke on this one. They blame something that they say happened 150 years ago, give or take. Slavery. What kind of mentality that would make you believe that slavery has something to do with your condition today? Think about that. Think about that. But you believe it. And then you believe it because, first of all, you've been brainwashed to believe it. You've been told by other lost people, that deceivers, that that's what your issue is. It's the white man. It's slavery. It's what the white man have done to you. And then they bring up situations like, what about black towns where blacks ran things and black this? They believe that that has something to do with their condition. And because it's their nature, because that's their nature. It's in their nature, it's in the mind. Their nature is darkness. Their nature is of the world. Their nature have made them, caused them to believe that somebody else has control over your life and they can stop you from doing and being what you want to do in life. They believe it. And they'll fight with you. They'll call you names. They'll cut you out. They will attack you if you tamper with that belief. They don't want you to even suggest that there is another way. There is a kingdom of heaven in us. There's a kingdom. And your nature, until you overcome that nature of thoughts and emotions, you're going to always be worldly. You're going to be of the world. And you're going to be miserable. And you're going to project out into the world what you are, and you're going to bring it back to you. What you put out, come back. If you look at a person that looks sad or afraid or shy or whatever, angry, you see that on their faces? That's what's coming back to them. They are creating their own world. They're creating it. They're putting it out there, and they are getting it back because it's their nature. And no one, as an adult, little children, your parents are responsible for you, but when you grow of age, you're responsible for you. You are your world. But you and you alone is to blame and nobody else. Because you don't realize, or maybe you don't realize that your nature is that of the world. And if you notice, human beings of the world do not take responsibility. They don't blame themselves for what they're getting back. They blame somebody else. They can't see that they're putting that out. And I try to tell black people, white people are not responsible for you at all, zero. You are your world. You're responsible for your world. And this is not only to the blacks, it's to everybody. But the blacks are so locked in with it because they have believed. So is a man thinking, so as he is. They have believed that it's somebody else. A 27-year-old man has no business, zero business, believing that somebody else is to blame for his or anyone else's situation. Really. But because he has not, and people like that, has not discovered that there is a really another way of living. There is a living from within, not from without. There's a living from without, but that living is death. There's no life in it. Look at how cruel the world and human beings are. They're lost. They're nasty. Christ said when they're angry, don't trust them. They're murderers. And not just physical murderers, but spiritual murderers in the mind. They're murderers. Wars. We got wars going on in the world today, and it should not be. But the nature is evil. The human nature, which is of evil, it's evil. You need a brand new nature. You need a renewed mind, and you can have it. But you got to work on you. And I want the blacks to know, and then the whites who are blaming the Jews, to know the Jews are not responsible for your issue, and the whites are not responsible for the black issues, and the Mexicans are not responsible for the Chinese issues, or Guatemala issues, or you and you alone. No one else is responsible for your situation. What you are putting out in your mind, in your nature of the mind, is what you're putting out is what you're bringing back onto yourself. Really. And you don't realize it. And no one else is to blame. No one can bring anything upon you that you don't allow them to bring upon you. If you were not of the mind, you wouldn't think about what other people are trying to do to you. It wouldn't be in your mind. That would be their issue on them. It would be their life because it would be their nature. The nature is evil. It is evil. And I want the blacks to know that because of your nature, and you can't see from within, you're only seeing from the outside, you're going to go another 150 years blaming white people for your problems. Generation after generation after generation. And it's never going to get better until you wake up and discover the kingdom of heaven within. There's another way to live. It really is. There's another world. Christ mentioned that world when he said it was done. The kingdom of heaven is within. Don't look without. It's not out there. It's not over there, he said. Don't look left. Don't look right. Don't look behind. Don't look forward. It's in you. Look within. And the last thing you want to do is look within. You hate your misery, your unhappiness, your worries. And I hear a lot of people talk about, oh, have compassion. If you want to have real compassion, then work on you. Have compassion and work on you. Compassion is you. It's not somebody else. And to the blacks, you've been brainwashed. You are your problem. And I want you to think about this. This is to the blacks too. But to all, the principles apply to every human being. But to the blacks, just think about, reflect. Sometimes when you reflect, it'll stick. And you're like, what the? Just think about that for the last 60 to 70 years, almost 70, maybe 70, the white people have done everything you asked them to do. Everything. Everything. They gave you the civil rights movement. They gave you the quote-unquote right to vote. At Mays mentioned one day. They gave you the right to go into white people cafes, even if they didn't want you in it, or into their neighborhoods. Even if the whites didn't want you in, and they had a right not to want you because they own the house, they have a right to say who they can have in their home. They have given you that. They have given you their schools. They even told you don't have to qualify to go to the school, just come on because you're black. And I got to take a quick break. When I come back, your phone calls and super chats.